Hi everyone, the 7th edition of APA Style specifies two different ways to set up your paper, one for students and one for professionals. This video will walk you through how to set up a paper for students. So this is ideal for assignments for a class, whether you are in high school, college, or even graduate school. But if you are writing a paper that you plan to submit for publication in a journal, check the video description for a link to the professional version, which is a little bit different. The video description also contains timestamps that will jump you to various parts of the video. So if you are just looking for one thing in particular, use the timestamps to get there. Now in this video, I will demonstrate everything using Microsoft Word on a Windows computer. If you are using Word for Mac, an older version of Word, or a different word processing program entirely, like Google Docs, your paper should still look the same way, but the menu options you select to make that happen might be in a different spot. Additionally, in order to get the most use out of this video, I recommend pausing the video as needed to complete the steps yourself. Because there is a lot to go over, I will demonstrate and talk at a moderate pace. If that is too fast for you, listen for a bit, pause the video, rewind as needed, get caught up, and then continue. And as a final note, in some spots I'm going to use lorem ipsum text or placeholder text for illustrative purposes. Now, the very first thing I recommend doing is to enable the formatting symbols. These are normally invisible, but I find them to be extremely useful when writing and formatting papers because they show every keystroke that you make. To do that, click on the paragraph symbol, which is the Show Hide Formatting Marks button. Now, whenever you press Enter, Tab, or Space, symbols for each will appear. These symbols are not printed, so you do not need to worry about a bunch of extra stuff appearing on what you do submit. It might take you a little bit of time to get used to seeing them, but once you do, you won't ever turn them off. Now, to actually get to APA Style, the first step is to ensure that your page margins are set up correctly. APA Style specifies 1-inch page margins on all sides. This is the default option nowadays, but older versions of Word and other word processing programs may have different margins. To double check, go to Layout, Margins, and then see what is selected. As you can see, Normal is the default option, 1 inch on all sides. If you need to change your margins, you can pick one of the presets or just go to Custom Margins, and you can then go ahead and change top, left, bottom, right to 1 inch each. Next, we should set our font. APA Style specifies several potential options, including Calibri size 11, Arial size 11, Times New Roman size 12, Georgia size 11, and a few others. I tend to prefer Times New Roman, so that's what I will set it to. Additionally, virtually the entire paper will be double-spaced, so let's set that as well by changing our line and paragraph spacing to 2. Finally, unless specified, all text should be left aligned, which is typically the default. Do not justify the text, keep it left aligned. Once the basics are taken care of, the first major part of your paper is the title page. So the first thing to do here then is create your title. To do that, you'll want to press Enter 3 or 4 times, center the text, write your title, and put the title in bold. You want to write it in title case, meaning that all important words start with a capital letter. Do not use any abbreviations in the title. And if you have a longer title or a subtitle, you can split it onto the next line, as I am doing here. A few notes on creating titles. The title should describe what the paper is about, so you need to convey the main ideas clearly. Oftentimes, this means incorporating the names of the variables that you studied or are exploring. And you also want the title to be descriptive without being needlessly long. So you want the title to strike a balance between being concise and being thorough. There is no word limit on how long a title should be, so again, you need to write one that best reflects your paper. Your title's length will ultimately depend on what your paper is about and what you are trying to convey. Next, we need to state who wrote the paper. So unbold your text, press Enter twice to put a blank line or space between the title and author byline, and write your name. You should include your first name, middle initial, and last name. If there are multiple authors, separate each person with a comma and then write out "and" before the final author. Do not include any titles or degrees that you may have or certifications, just write your name. And it's okay for author names to go onto a second or third line if you have a bunch of authors or longer names. Now, once the author is written, you need to state your affiliation. As students, your affiliation will be your department and university, separated with a comma. If you are in high school, you might not have a department, so you would just put down your school name. The next elements of a title page for student papers are for the class itself. So after the author affiliation byline, on the next line, state the course number and course title. And you want the number and title to match however the school or instructor has it listed. On the next line, write the course instructor's name. How you write it out depends on your instructor, so if you are unsure, just ask the person. If you are in college or graduate school and your instructor has a doctoral degree, you can start with doctor and then write out their last name, or put PhD after their full name. Or you could probably just put professor in front of their name, and that would work too. If you are in high school, your instructor probably doesn't have a doctoral degree, so you could put Ms. or Mrs. or Mr. in front of their name. The line after that should state the assignment's due date. Write out the due date based on how your country does it. So if you put the day before the month, you would do that here instead of how I have it set up. Now, the last major element of the title page for student papers is the page number. You can insert the page number by going to Insert, Page Number, Top of Page, Plain Number 3, which sets the page number in the top right corner of the header. So once you've done that, the title page is finished. That's all you need. The next section is the longest section, the main text of your work or the actual body of your paper. As a quick note, you do not need to write an abstract for student papers. If your instructor requires an abstract, however, go to the video description for a link to formatting professional papers and use the timestamp to skip to the section on abstracts. Now you should begin the main text the page after the title page, so on page 2. And at the start of the second page, you will repeat your title exactly as it is written on the title page. So it's just easy to go up, copy it, and hit paste. You do not need to write out the word introduction, as it is generally assumed that's what the first part of your paper is. And as a reminder, the text of your paper should be double-spaced, and you should always indent when starting a new paragraph. Your text should be left-aligned, and you should avoid any blank lines or extra spaces between paragraphs. Now, when it comes to writing, you should always use one space after a punctuation mark, including periods. So at the end of a sentence, just hit the space bar once. And this is one reason why making the formatting symbols visible is useful. You can easily see if you have any extra spaces or extra lines. The only exception to that rule is for abbreviations like EG or AM. You should also use the active voice instead of the passive voice whenever possible, along with the Oxford comma, but avoid using contractions, colloquialisms, or excessive amounts of jargon. When it comes to numbers, you should always use words to write out any numbers smaller than 10, common fractions like 1/2, or if the sentence starts with a number. Otherwise, use numerals. You should also always use numerals with units of measurement, dollar amounts, dates, and so on, even if they are smaller than 10. The other thing you should strongly consider using are concise section headings. These are extremely important for organizing your paper because they divide your work into cohesive parts. They are a great way to draw attention to key points, inform readers of what is coming next, and make looking for information easy. Section headings are also very useful for outlining your paper ahead of time. APA style specifies 5 levels of section headings, and I'm going to copy paste some placeholder text here and show you what it all will look like. Level 1 headings are the highest level, and they denote the start of major new sections. Level 2 headings are one level lower and are used to split a major section into subsections, with levels 3, 4, and 5 used to create more specific subsections and subsections. So for example, in a research paper, you might use a level 1 heading to denote the start of the method section, and level 2 headings to denote the start of subsections for participants and procedures. You could further subdivide the procedure section into subsections explaining each one of your different groups or conditions and so on. And you could do that with level 3 headings, and et cetera, et cetera. Note that using all 5 levels of section headings is not required, so don't feel any pressure to do so. You should only use as many headings and levels of headings as needed to neatly organize your paper. That said, just about everyone will benefit from using level 1 headings in their works, and oftentimes level 2 headings can help as well. Typically, you will not need to go beyond level 2, but you might need to for longer papers or projects, especially a lengthy lit review or a dissertation. Now, each type of section heading is formatted differently. Level 1 headings are centered, bold, and use titled case, meaning, again, that all major words start with a capital letter. Level 2 headings are the same as level 1, except they are left aligned. And level 3 headings are the same as level 2, except they are also in italics. For these first 3 levels, they are all on their own line, which means that text starts on the next line. And as you can see, the text should be indented. Level 4 headings are indented, bold, use title case, and end with a period. Level 5 headings are the same as level 4, except they are italicized. Now, with levels 4 and 5, text starts on the same line as the heading. Again, most writers will not need to get down to levels 4 and 5, but this is how you would do it if you needed to. And as a quick note about the example here, I have section headings basically at the start of every paragraph. That's probably too many section headings. I'm just using this to show you what they look like. You really only want to use section headings for your paper's major topics and subtopics. So that is how you set up the main body of your paper. I think this part is pretty straightforward, and really the hard part here is actually doing the writing, which is totally up to you. If you are citing research articles or other sources, you will need to use in-text citations. I have a separate video for those, so check the video description for a link to it. Now, the last few things to talk about here are the end matter. This encompasses several sections, some of which you may not need to include. The one section that you will almost always have is a reference list. The reference list starts on the next page after the main text is finished. You'll start by writing references at the top in bold and centered, and then writing out your references. I am not going to go into any detail on doing that now because this video is long enough as it is, so if you want to learn how to create a reference list, check the video description for a link to my video on that. Other examples of end matter include footnotes, tables, figures, and appendices. As students, you probably won't need any of them depending on the type of paper you're writing, but I'll briefly explain them here anyways for the sake of completeness. Footnotes are either for expanding on the text or for providing copyright attributions. Now, footnotes should be denoted in the main body of the paper itself with a superscripted number. From there, you can either insert them into the bottom of the page the footnote appears on, or you can include them on a separate page after the references. I tend to prefer the second method because I find it easier to keep track of them in one place. Start them on the next page after the reference list with the word footnotes in bold and centered. Start each footnote on a new indented line with the superscripted number at the start. Like footnotes, tables and figures can be inserted into the text or placed on new pages at the end of the document. I think it's a bit cleaner to have them at the end on their own pages. So to do that, after any footnotes, and if you don't have any footnotes, then just after the reference list, insert each table onto its own separate page. So if you have 3 tables, you'll have 3 pages with 1 table on each of them. Figures are set up the same way, formatted the same way as tables, and they will go on their own pages after any tables that you may have. I am not going to go into more information on creating these because, again, that would take a lot of time. I may create separate videos for those in the future, so do check the video description for potential links. Finally, the last part of the end matter is the appendix. This is for supplemental materials that might not fit well in the text of your paper, but would be of interest or of use to some of your readers. The appendix should start on a new page after any references, footnotes, tables, and figures. If there's only one appendix, just write appendix in bold and centered at the top of the page, and then on the line below it, the appendix title also in bold and centered. If you end up having more than one appendix, then you could label the first one as Appendix A, the second one would be labeled as Appendix B, and so on for however many you have. Now you can put all sorts of things here if needed, with some examples being things like additional statistical analyses or more detailed methodological descriptions, survey or instrument instructions or questions, or anything that may be too complex to have included in the main text of your paper itself. So in closing, in this video, we went through how to properly set up an APA-style paper for students, which included setting margins and picking a font, creating a title page with author and course information, inserting a page number, organizing the main text with section headings, and how to format pages for references, footnotes, tables, figures, and appendices. I hope you found this video helpful. I used the 7th edition of the publication manual of the American Psychological Association from 2019 to make this video. I definitely recommend either buying a copy yourself or encouraging your library to pick up a couple of copies so that you can look at it as needed. There are numerous permutations and special scenarios that I cannot go into in one video, but the publication manual will cover them all with a lot of examples. So if you have a question, you're probably going to find an answer in the manual itself. The APA-style blog and Purdue OWL are two great online resources to check out as well, and I'll link to them in the video description. I also have other videos on APA style, so please check the video description for links to them. Thanks for watching, and good luck writing.